Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 21 Hats podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Feldman. This week, Liz Picarazzi tells Jay Goltz and Sarah Segal that her trip to a bear sanctuary in Montana to get her trash enclosures certified as bear resistant did not go precisely as planned. Because of a logistical snafu, she has not yet obtained either the certification or, her real goal, a marketing video of the grizzlies attempting to crack open her baited enclosure. Fortunately, things went better for Liz in a more traditional marketing venue, a trade show in Chicago, where she promoted her rat-resistant enclosures. Meanwhile, Sarah follows up on how things are going since losing 2 big clients and having to lay off 3 employees. And Jay explains his new catchphrase, "Let me not sleep on it." Plus, we discuss the owner of a 2-year-old construction business who wonders how long he should keep going if he doesn't start to make a profit. He also asks why no one ever talks about how hard it is to run a business. While we can't know for sure what's happening inside his company, we can be pretty confident of this. If he thinks no one ever talks about how hard it is to run a business, he's not listening to the right podcast. Even in good times, owning and running a business can be a lonely pursuit. Our hope is that these weekly conversations, brought to you by our principal sponsor, The Great Game of Business, will let owners know they are not alone in facing challenges. Same thing with our daily newsletter, the 21 Hats Morning Report, which Inc. magazine named the best newsletter for business owners and which you can subscribe to for free at 21hats.com, where you can also find transcripts of our podcast episodes and lots of other articles and interviews. Joining me this week on the podcast are regulars Jay Goltz, CEO of the Goltz Group, whose companies in Chicago include a picture frame business, artist frame service, and a home furnishing store, Jason Home. Liz Picarazzi, CEO of City Bin, which is based in Brooklyn, New York, and makes trash enclosures and package bins. And Sarah Segal, who's founder and CEO of Segal Communications, a public relations firm based in San Francisco. The episode is titled, "And Some Days, the Bear Eats You." Welcome, Jay, Liz, and Sarah. It's great to have you here. Liz, contrary to some of the advice you've received on this podcast, you've been putting energy into the bear-proof enclosure idea that you want to sell out west. You took your team out to Montana recently to see if your enclosures can stand up to grizzlies. How did it go?
So I have to report it was, unfortunately, a disappointment. We spent a lot of money and a lot of time, both in preparation and traveling to the testing. It's done at a test facility for grizzly bears. And due to a couple of technical issues, most importantly being the leveling of the bins, the testing facility determined that they were not going to be tested with the grizzly bears. And instead, they're going to have a technical test, which is just basically a ground test without bears. It was very disappointing because of all of the expense, but also we felt really, I would say, pretty disempowered to fix the situation with the leveling. It really had to do with a misunderstanding with the center about who was going to assemble the bin on site. It was our understanding that we were going to ship it there and we were doing the assembly, but it turned out that they did the assembly. And the leveling was not done correctly, which was the reason that it was not put into the test. So very disappointing. We have a very, very strong reputation for being rat-proof, and the goal was to also be, basically our westward expansion is going to be through being bear-resistant, and we do not have that designation at this time. We didn't fail the test. It still will have this technical test. But for me, I really wanted...
What's a technical test? What does that mean?
So basically, they're looking at kind of how it operates, the measurements of, the doors, the gaps between a frame and a door, what they know about the ability of bear claws to be able to open up. This facility primarily tests trash cans and coolers. So although they have tested trash enclosures, mine is a 750-pound enclosure of steel, which, whether or not it's leveled, I at least don't think the bears would have penetrated, but we didn't have that chance to test it.
Okay, wait. I want to understand this. You're telling us there's a business that all they do is test coolers and garbage cans to see if bears can get into them. It would seem to me that like you'd run out of customers pretty quickly. I mean, how many coolers are there in the United States and how many garbage cans that they could keep a facility open for the whole year? How does that work?
Well, it's a nonprofit, and it's actually like a sanctuary for grizzly bears that have been taken out of the wild.
Okay, this is just an extra.
Yes, this is an extra. They have wolves, they have otters, they have many other animals there. And the grizzly bears are probably the biggest attraction, but it's a sanctuary and it's a really big tourist attraction in West Yellowstone, Montana.
So is your product still out there, or are you shipping back? What are you doing?
So I guess I skipped the lead here. It's still out there and it is going to be tested with the bears tomorrow. Apparently,
the center is the bear refuge.
Yes, it's part of like the Interagency Grizzly Bear Committee, and they are the one.
It's called the Grizzly Bear Committee.
It is.
Were the people grizzly? Were they hungry? What was going on there? Did you not feed them before you went there?
You know what? Maybe I should have bribed them with some food, but the only food that should have been involved was baiting the bins for the bears. So that's what they do is they get the most delicious food that the grizzly bears want. They bait it, and it's in this area where they just, there would have been 5 bears over the course of the day that try to penetrate the bin.
How long do they leave the bin out there for?
So they leave them out for shifts of 1 hour. So each bear gets 1 hour. And so there were supposed to be 5 hours of testing. One of the things that is a little bit tricky, though, is that it requires 60 minutes of bear, like hands-on time where the bear is actually trying to get in. So the bear wanders off and does something else. That is not counted as part of the 60 minutes. So over the 5 hours, cumulatively, you need to get the 60 minutes. What unfortunately often happens is that the bears get tired or they give up. And that's why they have the technical test to fall back on.
So you're saying if the product is too successful and discourages the bears and the bears give up, you don't get certification because they haven't tried hard enough, long enough?
No, you can get the certification, but it's through this backup of the technical test.
This feels like when I listen to NPR and they have these 3 outrageous things, like, which one do you think this is, A, B, or C? And they tell this bizarre story, and you have to guess which one of them is true. Because this is a bizarre story that there's
Wait, don't tell me.
Yeah, wait, don't
Yes.
tell me. Yeah, this is what this feels like. So do we really believe you went out to Montana and went to a bear sanctuary and were disappointed because
where there was a committee of grizzly bears.
Of grizzly people who didn't give you enough time. What's the next choice?
Wait. How do you find a place like this? Are they like advertising online? We're a sanctuary, yet we test things.
No, I mean, this is for big brands like Yeti or Brute, Rubbermaid, any sort of trash cans, Coleman. They all get their products tested here. So for me, that was something that was also discouraging because a lot of these brands that probably have tested dozens of times over the years with dozens of products, if they don't pass or if it doesn't work out, yes, it's disappointing, but it's not like, me, I've got like my house mortgaged against the business. And if something like this doesn't work out, it's a pretty big deal. If I'm just an employee at Yeti and the cooler fails, like, yeah, I'll go back and I'll improve it and I'll go again, but it's not going to affect my paycheck.
So was this going to be videotaped?
Yes. So I had a videographer lined up. I even have my marketing campaign, which was to launch in January, all lined up, where the video was the primary content for that. So I still have tomorrow, I have a videographer who's going to be there. Who knows? I mean, maybe the next time I'm on here, I talk about how wonderful it went, but I'm just feeling a little tempered.
I work with an animal, it's not a sanctuary, but it's an animal facility in Montana. It probably not very far from where you are. I'm just curious how much you're paying them for this thing.
Ooh, let me guess. $3,500.
Less.
Oh, that's a bargain.
It was only $1,000.
Okay, it was $1,000, but then on top of that, I'm assuming, so your flights, your hotel stay, the videographer, the shipping of the product, this is probably all in 7 or 8 grand, right?
Easily. Yes. Plus our time, time taken away from sales. I took, one of my technicians who also happens to be our top salesperson. He was out of circulation for about a week for this.
Are you confident that the trash enclosure is now properly leveled and set up?
No.
I would say this episode should be called, If You Thought You Had Problems, You Really Don't. You need to hear Liz's problems.
Do you have your marketing plan all set? What are you going to do with that video if the grizzly bears do, in fact, fail to breach your enclosure?
So, the videos that come out of this center do tend to go viral because the bears, like on coolers and on trash cans, they get on top of them and it's like they're giving them CPR. They're pushing down over and over and over. It's really interesting to watch. I don't think that would have happened with my 750-pound steel container. For our rat video, which we did about 5 years ago, we hired an actor who played the role of a rat scientist who talked about the experiment, how it went, what was baited. And it was really funny. It was very popular, and it actually became a pretty big part of our brand. When we advertise as being rat proof, we put that in the signature line of almost all of our emails. And that's really part of what we're known for. In terms of who we were going to be targeting, it would be a lot of resort towns in the mountain states, resorts themselves, homeowner associations. We do have a pretty strong presence in Aspen. We have about 10 or 12 units there, and that really kind of through word of mouth, those bear enclosures have sold really well there. I don't need to have a certification to say that we are bear resistant because they are bear resistant. In practice, they've been in the field. So that's the thing is like, okay, am I going to be hurt that much if I don't have the certification? I actually think I might be hurt more by not having the bear video, quite frankly. That was what I really wanted. I hate to say that even more than the certification, I wanted that bear video.
I think there's a way to get that bear video after the fact. But I love this because I think it's a great case studies for other businesses. Like, Jay, could you put a couch somewhere and put a whole bunch of dogs around it and see which dog likes that couch the best?
Yeah, you got me thinking now.
It's a very specific thing for your industry. I worked for, we had a client for a long time called Relay who make basically nice walkie-talkies for hospitality. And they had a video where they took the walkie-talkie and they drove a car over it a couple times to show that it continued to work and was never damaged. And it did well. It showed that it would withstand abuse, which I think is really important for a lot of businesses who want to invest in products or enclosures or what have you, where they're going to be manhandled or bear handled.
See, I would have liked to have seen a video of you sitting in an airplane next to some stranger and the person turns, you go, oh, where are you going? And you explain, oh, I'm going to a bear sanctuary, and watch their expression, waiting to see if they're like on candid camera or something.
Can you you should send a picture to Lauren so at least he can, if you have a photograph of you and the bears, put it in the newsletter because I think everybody would love to see that.
With a 21 Hats hat on the bear.
We want to see you appearing before the Grizzly Bear Committee and making your case for their approval.
Okay. Well, I had nothing going on this week compared to that.
But actually, Lauren, I do want to say one more thing in terms of the marketing. So this would have allowed me to have 2 to 3 different products for different populations. So we've got the rat version. We've got the bear version, which has different handles. It has the same opening handles as you see in national parks with those trash enclosures. So we outfitted it with that and we made it in steel instead of aluminum. So there was a lot of product differentiation that also, in terms of our marketing, it would have been 2 different target populations. And like I said, it really would have helped and will help with our westward expansion. It's just going to take longer than I anticipated.
So you also had a more traditional marketing opportunity. You also recently attended a trade show in Chicago. How'd that go?
So that went wonderfully. That was the week after my disappointing bear trip to Montana in Chicago. And this was with my main kind of target customer, which is downtown districts, commercial districts. They're sometimes called SSAs, sometimes called business improvement districts. And it's a yearly convention where all of those executive directors from all over the country come to the city to hear various speakers, but we were an exhibitor. So we were able to interface with a lot of existing clients who we're already installed with to kind of get their opinion. They're very happy. Some of them even provided live testimonials to other people coming into the booth, but also get to meet prospects who we may have connected with through some sort of cold emails. So that was incredible. There was great interest, great connection, and that felt really good afterwards. Then there's also a lot of, more volume selling that comes from that. If we sell usually in New York for, rat proof, oftentimes it's single family or small multifamily. This would be for large cities, like we have in New York City. CityBin is installed in 22 different business improvement districts, 60 different locations. We're also in Philadelphia, in Boston, in Newark, in Hoboken, and growing. So that's our biggest growth area for the business. And that is the biggest concentration you could possibly have of that population. All three of us that were there, we felt like we got incredible leads, great FaceTime with clients.
I guess those clients are, you just explained to us, are business districts. I imagine it's kind of a long sales cycle with them. So maybe it's too early to know whether you actually made any sales. Is that right?
Yes, too early, but setting up estimate visits. So for those that we connected with who are from New York, we're out this week doing visits in their districts. And then the other thing we heard is that the city is going to be mandating, not just suggesting, that business improvement districts containerize their trash. So right now we're in 22 of the 76 business improvement districts in New York City, and this just makes the opportunity that much greater to install in the rest.
I assume not in Chicago, right? We have SSAs, except we have alleys. We don't have garbage sitting out on the sidewalk, so I can't imagine.
We did. We have a big proposal out to one of your SSAs, Jay, that we reached out to ahead of time, and then we are there. We meet with him again. We took measurements. And so I have a feeling that one is probably going to move ahead.
Wait, for where, though? Where is this unit going to be? Because we don't put garbage on the sidewalks. In the alley?
This is for public use. So this is for public trash that normally would be in a trash can, like in a corner basket.
No, that's a problem because they're overflowed all the time and they don't get picked up enough.
So those corner baskets.
But Liz has a solution for that.
Right. Well, and for these corner baskets in cities that often overflow, we now have a product that handles the overflow that's called the Basket Plus. So that's something that is really like a before and after visual of what we can make happen in cities on a corner. We can take hundreds of corners and get the trash lifted off of the sidewalk and into the bin. So that was also really validating that there was specific interest for that product in Chicago.
You've explained this to us before. I think the idea is you have the trash can that's available for public use, but then you have a bin with it so that before it overflows, the trash can be thrown in the bin and you don't have to wait for a truck to come and empty the trash receptacle. Is that right?
Exactly.
Did you stop by and see Jay while you were in Chicago?
Well, I did. I stopped by his warehouse, but I didn't see Jay. And it's a good thing because I had COVID at the time and I didn't know it. So he actually was really instrumental in helping us get our exhibit, our booth in and out of the trade show. As most small businesses know that do trade shows, there's somewhat of a racket around getting your things in and out of the hotel. Using the elevators, even if all they do is help you put something in the elevator and they push a button. I've gotten bills for $4,000 just for that one action. So we were able to avoid that by shipping to Jay, borrowed Jay's minivan, took our stuff, basically snuck it in to the hotel and did the same on the way out. So we definitely have a lot to owe to Jay for that. That was great.
That's really interesting that you were able to avoid that. We're going to have to raise this with our trade show expert, Jennifer Karen, next time she's on and see what she thinks of you sneaking into the hotel. And then,
well, here was an interesting part. They were going to rent a van, and they won't allow rental vans or trucks to go to the facility. And you could say they're being jerks, but I got to tell you, my guess is people back them into stuff all the time because people are not used to driving trucks and vans. So they might have a legitimate reason for not allowing rental vans there.
That makes sense.
But that's pretty universal. I mean, we sneak in New York still occasionally too, in some of the trade shows we do here. But, you know, it's one thing if the union people really, really help you move things. But I've found that they actually don't. You know, there was one situation in New York a few years ago, like I said, with the elevator and the button. I knew I was about to be extorted. So while I was in the elevator with this guy, I pulled out my camera and I took a video of the action he took was to push the button, and I still got a bill for $4,000.
Being somebody who's had to work with union organizations, there are good ones and there are bad ones. There are ones where the employees do the bare minimum, and there are ones where they go above and beyond. So I think that it really depends on what organization you're working with.
Well, it also, the city figures out that they're scaring away trade show business. So they are sensitive to this because a lot of people will just stop having trade shows there because they don't want to get extorted from. So there is a price to pay for them. And I think Chicago years ago had a little problem with that. I think it might be better now, but that certainly is a regular topic.
Right. Well, and then the other factor is what is the product you're displaying? So I'm not just taking some tables and like a little booth and some brochures. I'm taking incredibly heavy aluminum and steel cabinets, and there's a different rate for bulk and heavy things. So that actually spikes it even more.
Yeah, that's why now, not that that's a good price, but I was thinking, why would they possibly charge $4,000? Well, it must have been, that's still way too much money, but I've never gotten a bill like that for anywhere.
well, it's too much money if all they do is press a button.
Yeah. And maybe it was a really big button, though. Could you send us the pictures of that button just so we can analyze this on our own?
So, Sarah, last time you were on, you described having to go through the painful process of laying off several employees. How have things been going since then?
Well, fine. Actually, the people that remained all stepped up to the plate and actually found the opportunity to kind of take on responsibilities that they hadn't taken on before. And so things are great. My P&L is fantastic. I'm feeling a lot less financial stress. I have been working my tail off to try to find employment or opportunities for the 3 people that I did let go. But it was really heart-wrenching, and it took me a long time to be able to. I probably should have pulled the plug earlier just because I didn't want to do it. But I'm feeling a lot less stressed now. That said, we're a smaller team, and our days are very full of work. I am not working on the business. I'm working in the business currently. Part of the reason which is that we have 2 major projects that we're working on that will be done at the end of November. One is the APEC conference, which is an international conference that comes to San Francisco, 21 economies. The president will be here. We're doing all the media relations for that. And then the other one is this thing called Fan Expo, which is like a Comic-Con style conference. And those both end at the end of November. And then so December, we're going to look up and be like, what are we doing? But what's interesting about the current climate is that I have probably about 15 prospective clients that they're like, we want to hire you. We're just waiting for a couple boxes to be checked internally. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll have a quieter December, which I think we all kind of are hoping for. And we do take some time off in December. And then January, we'll have a lot of new business starting up, as well as the continuation of our long-term clients. So things are good. I'm busy as all heck, but it's a better situation for sure.
Have you made any changes? Are you doing anything differently that resulted in you getting those potential clients lined up?
No. I do a lot of this where I make acquaintances and I talk to people, and I'm building my referral network where we make an agreement where I say, okay, you refer us, we land the business, I'm going to give you a nice little kickback or something. And so I have a couple people that get a lot of business because either they used to run their own agency and no longer do it, but still get inbounds, or marketing agencies that don't have a PR and social media component or what have you. So why not, instead of just saying no to those potential clients, so saying, hey, we know an agency that would be great for you, and they send them our ways. The one thing that we are doing that I have to say about this APEC conference, so we've applied in the past for these like government RFPs, which I'm sure Liz knows all about. And our biggest hurdle with that is that we had never had a .gov as one of our clients. And when you don't have a .gov as a past client or a current client, nobody's going to look twice at you. So now we've been able to check that box. So next year, I'm hoping to be able to do a little bit more of these long-term.
How did you get the first one?
We got the first one because I had become acquainted with the anchor of the PBS news interview show here in San Francisco. And she was appointed to be the press ambassador. And they were, the city was like, here's the really long list of all the things that you need to do. And so she called me up and said, hey, I know your work. We've worked together in the past. Would you be interested in being my team for this? And so it's been a great experience. I mean, the interesting people that we're meeting is just worth the price of entry. Like, we're putting together this whole video series where we're interviewing and doing kind of preview welcomes for these countries with notable people in the Bay Area. So like myself and my team got to go down and interview Tyler Florence, and there's a lot of really cool experiences that we're getting out of this, in addition to having the check mark of a .gov, and we're not being paid enough for it.
Yeah, not only paid enough, I wonder how long it'll take to get paid. That's the other issue.
No, but here's the thing, is that sometimes these things work out in a really positive way. Like, we worked for an organization called AGU, the American Geological Union, which is a huge nonprofit in DC that basically funds smaller research projects across the country. So studies into a local area's aquifer. Why is this area flooding? And we did this great project for them, and it was a lot of work, and it came to an end. And we wrapped that up, put a case study together, and we submitted it, and we won an award for it last week. So like, sometimes these projects that you end up doing more work for than you should have a residual impact where you get a nice trophy, you get accolades, and then more people find out about you.
Absolutely.
Plus the team likes awards. It's fun.
Did you actually, I'm just curious, did you ask them how long it takes to get paid?
Who? The government?
Yeah.
See, I don't care about that because they are paying the media ambassador and she is paying us, and we haven't had any issues. So if she hasn't been paid, that's her issue, not ours. But yes, I know that government is notorious, but there's not just government. My husband works for a private brand, and their pay period is like, I want to say 90 days, which is like, who can run a business like that? That's just painful.
Well, anytime they have a corporate payment system, even though you would think it's very efficient, it often means you're going to get paid later, where you have to log into their system and put all your forms in. Then what they'll say is, it's just 30 to 60 days for everybody, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, that's not horrendous, 30 to 60. It's when it's 90, 120. You're talking about trying to fund a business. How many startup or how many smaller businesses can afford to not get paid for 3 months? Not a lot.
No, I know. Like, and how do you circumvent? They're like, that's how we pay. Ta-da! And you have any recourse?
Yeah, no. The answer is you need to make sure you got some lines of credit somewhere, because that's the only. And maybe you charge a little bit more because you're going to pay some interest on the money you're. Interest is no longer 3%. So you say to yourself, well, I was going to charge $3,000. Maybe I'm going to charge $3,200 because I'm going to have to pay juice on the money that I'm going to have to borrow. So everybody needs to always be working on having credit lines.
I just paid off my credit line. It was very satisfying last week.
Okay, well, that's good. You have one, though.
It's small. I'm going to need to ask for more just to have for that rainy day. But I'm really trying to work on that rainy day. The 3 months of costs to be able to have that set aside. So when there are lulls in business, which generally for PR and marketing, it's January is usually. So you spend a lot of time at the end of the year trying to set things up to start in January, because you can't really do new biz in January because they're all trying to figure out their budgets.
All right. I want to run kind of a case study by you guys. Comes from a post I saw on the small business subreddit, and I'm eager to hear what you guys think. So I'm going to read this to you. After finishing my bachelor's in engineering, I worked for a small construction company my dad worked for. After I got a couple years experience, my dad and I decided to venture out and open our own company. We have been very blessed to always have steady workflow. However, with constant unforeseen expenses, the last 2.5 years have been a constant fight where I very often will go without a paycheck, and the amount of times I've wanted to quit have been countless. I finally feel now like I'm keeping my head above water and starting to see a steady profit. A part of me is scared this is only temporary. My question is, how long were you in business before you saw a steady profit rather than just a continuous investment? Goes on to say, I feel like no one ever talks about how hard it is to own your own business. Clearly, this person has not found the 21 Hats podcast. Hopefully someone who's listening will send it to him. But the main question there is, how long do you go, especially in the beginning, without a steady profit? Any thoughts?
I want Jay's answer first on this, since he's been doing it for longer.
Well, the first thing I have to question if I was talking to him is, what does that mean? Constant unforeseen expenses. What? What does that mean? What does that mean? What kind of unforeseen expenses do you have in business? So that's odd in itself. Like, should they have been foreseen perhaps? Did he not know the rent was going to be due every month? I don't know what that means. I would say if you haven't pulled out of the hole after a couple of years, I think you might have a problem. I was making money from day one, but I had a little momentum because I was selling frames in college to artists. And when I opened up, I just expanded it. I actually made $20,000 my first year, which back in 1978 was what somebody graduated college went out and made as an accountant. So I didn't have that, but I have certainly started businesses to take 2-3 years to turn. But I question whether he looked at his quote unquote business model and knew what he was getting into, given that phrase unforeseen expenses.
It didn't strike me quite that way. You must have unforeseen expenses that pop up from time to time, don't you, Jay?
Not many. I mean, what wouldn't be, the air conditioner breaks. Okay, well, you should have figured the air conditioner's going to break eventually. I mean, I can't say I do have a lot of unforeseen expenses. If you just get the context, he started an engineering firm. How many moving parts is there to that? You got a computer and maybe a printer, and I don't know. I'd be curious to give me 6 unforeseen expenses. I don't understand.
He says it's a small construction company. So he's building things.
Okay. That certainly opens it up too. He got some fines. A machine broke. He didn't plan on breaking. Okay. That makes more sense. I thought it was an engineering firm. I would think after a few years, you should be making money.
In my first business, my handyman business, it was probably 2.5 to 3 years before I made any money. And the money that I made, I actually reinvested in creating City Bin and ultimately spinning it off. So with that business, I never felt like I made money, but what I got out of it was the business I'm now in, which I love. The business I was in before I hated. So I was able to get out of it. In City Bin, in terms of profitability, it probably did take me another 2 to 2.5 years to be profitable. But I just kept doing.
How stressful was that at the time?
So at the time, Frank still had a corporate job, and we really were like, as long as we're covering expenses and we're saving some money, we're fine because we're investing in this business, which now, we're both working for. So yeah, I wasn't say it was crazy expensive. Also, we only have one child, and that was one of the decisions we made is because we knew we would be making some decisions with my business or with Frank's music career that would make having any more than one child in New York City impossible. Not that that directly answers it, but that always has been a factor in our family finances. That decision just to have one child made it easier to take risks, like to start a business.
If I look back at my business history, the reason why my business grew so much is I don't lose a lot of customers. I have a very, very high customer retention rate. And I see lots of businesses that open, they lose business. It's flow through marketing, I call it. They get people to come in the front door and they go walking right out the back door. And that's a business cannot afford to only have half their customers happy. They just can't. And if you look at this is kind of a weird thing, but think about it. If you're just 5% better than somebody else, that's the world. If both businesses started and did $200,000 a year, and one grew 5% more than the other, after 40 years, one could be a $10 million business and the other one could be a $300,000 business. It's about customer retention.
You have to treat everybody like they are the most important person that ever walked through their doors. We have a wide range of retainer clients, but the person that pays us, a couple $1,000s a month gets the same level of attention and hand-holding and work out of us as a person that pays us, $10,000, $20,000 a month. So because we want them to stay. And those smaller clients, maybe they're not huge, but they're interesting and some of them are a lot of fun. And a lot of them turn into bigger clients eventually.
And can refer business.
Right.
That's a huge thing. So Lauren, let's go back 2 weeks ago. You had in the report the bagel place that had gourmet bagels. Everybody loved them. And he's closing because he's not making money. And if you recall, I said to you, Lauren, there's more to this story. And I looked into it. How about this part of the story? I went to his website. He's only open 4 days a week. Pretty hard to stay in business if you're selling bagels. And it doesn't open till 8 in the morning. My bagel place over here opens at 6 in the morning. Pretty hard to stay in business if you're only open 4 days a week and you're selling something like bagels.
Yeah, that's somebody who doesn't want to work. They want a business, but they don't actually want to work.
But they wouldn't tell you that. They would tell you that I don't know. I've never heard anybody that's gone broke that actually understood why they went broke. They usually blame it on the bank. That's the first one. Going out of business because he doesn't need to work either. He could have hired someone else to work the other 3 days, but he doesn't have the mentality to be able to deal with that probably.
Well, he did have employees, but I suspect you're 100% right that there's a lot about that situation that we don't know.
Lauren, to go back to your question, so my industry is a lot different because I'm a service-based industry. I made money from day one because have laptop will work because our overhead is a bunch of, software programs that are expensive, but can be scaled up and down based on the size of your team.
Well, you have a lease now too.
I do, but it's so cheap.
Really?
No, it's so cheap. Yeah, maybe it's not cheap for everybody, but for San Francisco, it's cheap. We pay $2,500 a month. We are on the corner of a very great area. We're on the edge of the financial district, Chinatown, and the retail district. So we're near everything. And it's not fancy. We don't have an elevator. You have to walk up 2 flights of stairs to get to it.
Oh, my God.
It's a perfect space for what we need. And we don't have the burden of an expensive office where I'm everybody has to come in every single day. It's more come in. Let's incentivize you to come in a little bit more. We're mostly here 3 days a week. And it's a casual, easy environment.
I have to ask the opposite question. What made him think that going in business was going to be easy? Really, where did he get that impression that he was going to go in business and it was going to be easy?
Anybody who runs a business lays awake at night going through the lists of all the things that they need to do to make their business better. If you're running a business, you should be constantly trying to improve yourself, improve your process, improve your employee retention, improve the product that you're doing. And that's not easy because you're always on that kind of pushing yourself to do more.
I have a new phrase I just thought of this morning when I woke up at 3 a.m. The phrase is, let me not sleep on that.
That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, because as you know, you can be as calm as could be. Like, I can't control my sleep patterns, and like, I got some things I got to deal with, and it woke me up at 3 a.m. and it doesn't happen to me a lot, but it sure did this time, and there was no getting back to bed. So I can tell you, if you want to avoid traffic in Chicago during construction season, 4:30 in the morning, good to go. There wasn't any traffic. So I finally found a time there wasn't traffic.
Yeah, I mean, I wake up in the middle of the night on a regular basis, but I try to keep a notebook next to my bed so I can write it down, because otherwise I will just think about it all. I lay there thinking about whatever it is for hours.
Oh my God. I could have used that notebook when I was thinking about the Bears in the middle of the night for the last week.
We've got problems in Chicago with the Bears. They haven't won a game, so you're not the only one that's staying up.
All right. My thanks to Jay Goltz, to Sarah Segal, and to Liz Picarazzi, and to our sponsor, The Great Game of Business, which helps businesses use an open book management system to build healthier companies. You can learn more at greatgame.com. Thanks, everybody. Wait, don't leave yet. If you have a question or a comment that you'd like the 21 Hats owners to address, send it to me by replying to your morning report or by email at lauren@21hats.com. That's LOREN@21hats.com. Do it now before you forget. And don't be afraid to tell Jay what you really think. He can take it. And if you got something out of this conversation, help us reach more business owners. Tell a friend. Subscribe and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to the Morning Report at 21hats.com. This episode was produced by Jess Thuberon, founder of Blank Word Productions. Okay, now you can leave. Thanks for listening, everyone.